So the first thing we need to do when we start our canvas is we've projected our design using our acetate. So this is my template here, which I then projected just using an OHP, just to get the parts that I want. So obviously I've only chosen part of this design, so I'm cutting off the face. I've also printed off some text, so I've used one of the text generators online to create some text, just to make sure that my text is accurate, because it's difficult to draw that freehand. The next thing I've done is I've added a base tone, so I'm using a bright orange colour because I think it works with the colours from my research. So these are my initial pictures of Hanuman. You can see orange is quite a featured kind of colour within this artwork, so I want to use that as part of the background. Even if I'm doing it in a different way, I'm still taking some colours from this research that I've done. I've also got my original images, so I'm not just colouring in, I'm always looking at the original image so I can see the lights, the darks and all the different tones in between. When I started this piece, I've also painted the edges, because it just creates a nicer finish. So with this kind of base colour, and you will notice as well, you can see some of the paint marks, so I will have to go over this again with a second coat, but that's just to get you started, and it just gets rid of the blank kind of page, and you feel like actually you've, in a very short space of time, you've covered much more of your canvas than if you're just starting in one bit, and a lot of people start with the eyes and things like that. So just get some paint on there. Great thing about acrylic, you can paint over the top. So the thing I'm going to move on to next is I've got my colour scheme. This time I'm taking colours from Tristan Eaton's work. So you can see here you have to use his grey scale or just like a blue monochrome effect, or a red in this case. So I'm going to go for the blue effect for this top part of the face here. So I've got some blue, and because I'm working with tints and shades, we're going to use black to create a shade, and we're going to use white to create a tint. Notice the amount on the palette, a very small amount. You do not need lots of paint. You can always add paint, you can't remove the paint. I've got myself a couple of brushes, so a round brush and a flat brush. So flat brush is for big areas, the round brush for some of the smaller details, and even though that looks quite big, you can get very fine details with that tip, so that will work for even the smallest areas. So with this time, rather than just put it on a flat colour, I'm going to start to blend and shade as I go along. So I'm going to make sure I've got my resource material again, and I'm just going to stick that to the top on my canvas with a bit of blue tack, just so it's there, I can see it clearly. I've also got a pot of water. Try not to use too much water when using acrylic, keep it quite thick. And I'm simply just going to start to apply some of this paint on top here. Now if you do want to get a smooth edge, get a little bit of water onto your brush, just so it kind of moves a little bit easier and kind of slides on the canvas a bit easier, especially as the canvas has a texture to it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold the brush, and if you can see that, I'm going to hold the brush flat, and then just kind of pull that round, and that will give me a smooth edge then. So you can see I've got quite a nice smooth edge on that eye there. If I just show you on this palette down here, so just by holding it flat on there, you can get a smooth edge, rather than a rough edge. You don't want this kind of broken edge to it. You want it to keep it quite smooth, particularly around the features. When you get to some of the bigger areas, it doesn't really matter, because you can kind of build on top of that and paint on top of that. So it's a little bit light in places. Notice I'm taking from the edge of the white, not from the middle. So I'm just going to kind of blend into that as I go along. So it's a bit lighter down here. Again, when you take from the black, really small amount from the edge, just so we're getting some of those greys in there. So although you can go over acrylic quite easily, that's what's so nice about this type of paint compared to maybe some other paints. It's so versatile. So if you make a mistake, you can let it dry, you can paint over the top. But when it comes to blending acrylics, it has to be done while it's wet. If you try and blend the paints when it's dry, it just doesn't work. See, I can rub off the excess on here, create a different shade. So you can see just grabbing the colour underneath. Whereas if it was dry, you wouldn't grab that colour, you would just paint over the top. You would go back to a flat colour again. And the flat colour is where you have no shading. Now I might start to go to a flat brush. I quite like using a flat brush rather than the round brush, so I think I might change that a little bit and just work a bit quicker. When you want to get a thin line with a flat brush, obviously rather than going this way, you would just use the side and you'll get quite a thin line with that. If you do end up creating a tone that you kind of feel like it's on your brush, rather than washing it, you can just put that tone elsewhere and then kind of come back to it. So because it's a bit dark on the forehead here, I'm just using that. So I'm not just sticking to the eye area, I can start to spread out. And if you work quite quickly, that technique works quite well. Yeah.
Sally okay with that?
Yeah. So you can see it's not taken a long time just to get a bit of shaping on that. So although this isn't finished, what I'm trying not to do is to lose the definition within the face. It's very easy with acrylic because you can paint over mistakes. It's just to keep painting everything flat again. So we think it's not working, so we get it back to flat again because we don't want to see the paint marks. Paint marks are okay. Yeah, you will see some areas that are smoother, but some areas you'll see the marks as well, and that's absolutely fine because otherwise you'll just keep, as I said, flattening the image again. We want it to get some definition. So I'd still like to work back into this eye a little bit more with a finer brush, but you can see we're starting to get a bit of shape to the cheeks and where the eyeball is, and of course I can then do the same with the ear. So for them, start with the background, get some colours on there, practice using your brush techniques, particularly in the background. So use your brush in different ways. So like I said before, keep the brush flat to get a smooth or a thinner line, and also kind of practice, if I just get a bit of black on there so you can see it, practice, you know, moving the brush and twisting it to kind of get different shapes as well. Just get used to using it because it's a tool most of you haven't used very often. So you'll get better with this as you move through the process of actually doing it on there. It won't just happen. It's going to happen as you keep working back to it. So just to kind of give you a bit of a closer up look. So that should be at least a starting point for you.